March 19th, 2026. Iranian naval forces deployed autonomous underwater vehicles across the Strait of Hormuz. Not experimental prototypes, not test units, operational combat drones. 47 of them positioned at strategic choke points along the 21-mile wide passage that channels 21 million barrels of oil per day from the Persian Gulf to global markets. Each drone costs approximately $2 million. Each drone carries enough explosive payload to sink a fully loaded oil tanker worth $150 million carrying cargo worth another $100 million. The math is simple and terrifying. Iran just turned the world's most critical energy corridor into an underwater minefield that no navy can effectively clear. Let me explain what these systems actually are. The Iranian designation is Tolue, which translates to sunrise. NATO intelligence classifies them as UUV-X, unidentified unmanned underwater vehicle experimental variant. But there's nothing experimental about their deployment. These are production models based on technology Iran has been developing for 8 years with assistance from both Chinese and Russian naval engineering programs. Each Tolue drone is 4.2 meters long, weighs 850 kilograms, and operates at depths between 50 and 300 meters. Battery endurance is 72 hours in active patrol mode, 14 days in standby mode. The propulsion system uses pump jet technology that makes the drone nearly silent at cruising speed. Acoustic signature is comparable to ambient ocean noise, which means traditional sonar has extreme difficulty detecting them until they activate. The payload is modular. Iran can configure each drone with either a 200-kilogram high-explosive warhead designed to breach a ship's hull below the waterline, or a shaped charge specifically engineered to detonate against a tanker's cargo tanks, igniting the oil and turning the ship into a floating inferno. The detonation mechanism has 3 activation modes: remote command from Iranian naval facilities, autonomous target recognition using acoustic signatures programmed into the drone's software, or dead man's switch that triggers if the drone detects jamming attempts or loses connection with command systems for more than 6 hours. This last feature is critical because it means you cannot simply jam the control signals and neutralize the threat. Jamming triggers detonation. The Tolue drones were deployed from Iranian Ghadir-class midget submarines between March 14th and 18th. Each submarine carried 2 drones and external launch tubes, positioned them at predetermined coordinates, and returned to Iranian waters. Iranian Naval Command now has real-time telemetry from all 47 drones at their Bandar Abbas Operations Center. They can track every vessel transiting the strait and detonate any drone within range with a single command transmission. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, but the navigable shipping channel is much narrower. Tankers and cargo ships must follow established traffic lanes to avoid shallow water, subsurface obstacles, and territorial water boundaries. The inbound lane heading into the Persian Gulf and the outbound lane heading toward the Gulf of Oman are each approximately 2 miles wide. That means all commercial shipping traffic is compressed into predictable corridors that are easy to monitor and easier to mine with autonomous weapons. Iran positioned the Tolue drones in clusters of 3 to 5 units spaced along both traffic lanes at intervals of approximately 4 nautical miles. This spacing ensures that any ship transiting the strait will pass within engagement range of multiple drones during its passage. A typical VLCC, very large crude carrier, takes 4 hours to transit the strait at standard speed. During those 4 hours, the ship passes within 500 meters of at least 8 different drone positions. Each drone has an effective engagement range of 800 meters. The overlap is intentional. If one drone malfunctions or misses, 2 others are within range to engage the same target. The United States Fifth Fleet is headquartered in Bahrain, 150 miles northwest of the strait. Fifth Fleet assets include Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with sonar systems capable of detecting submarine threats, MH-60R helicopters with dipping sonar for anti-submarine warfare, and P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft with advanced acoustic sensors. None of these systems are optimized for detecting small, slow-moving autonomous drones operating in shallow, high-traffic coastal waters. The acoustic environment in the Strait of Hormuz is extremely noisy. Dozens of ships transit daily. Their propellers, engines, and hull vibrations create a constant background of acoustic clutter. Detecting an 850-kilogram drone moving at 3 knots in that environment is like trying to hear a whisper in a stadium full of people shouting. The U.S. Navy has mine countermeasures, ships specifically designed to clear underwater threats. The Avenger-class MCM ships use sonar, ROVs, and trained divers to locate and neutralize mines. The problem is speed. An Avenger-class ship can clear approximately 0.3 square nautical miles per day in ideal conditions. The Strait of Hormuz covers approximately 42 square nautical miles of navigable shipping lanes. Clearing the entire area would require 1 MCM ship operating continuously for 140 days. Iran can redeploy new drones faster than the U.S. can clear existing ones. This is not a problem that sweep operations can solve. The production rate favors the attacker. Here's what happens if Iran decides to activate the drones. A Qatari-flagged VLCC carrying 2 million barrels of Saudi crude oil enters the strait, heading eastbound toward Asian markets. The ship is 330 meters long, displaces 160,000 tons fully loaded, and travels at 14 knots. Iranian Naval Command watches the ship on radar and confirms identity through AIS transponder data. When the ship reaches coordinates corresponding to a cluster of 3 Tuluay drones, Iranian operators transmit an encrypted activation signal. All 3 drones receive the command simultaneously. Their acoustic sensors confirm the target's position and movement. The drones maneuver into intercept positions using their pump jet propulsion. The ship's crew has no indication this is happening. The drones are too small for the ship's radar to detect, too quiet for passive sonar, and too deep for visual observation. At 200 meters range, the drones' shaped charge warheads arm automatically. At 50 meters, final guidance activates. The drones accelerate to maximum speed and impact the tanker's hull at the waterline, directly beneath the forward cargo tanks. 3 simultaneous explosions breach the hull plating and rupture the internal tank structure. Crude oil begins pouring into the ocean at a rate of 5,000 barrels per minute. The shaped charges also generate enough heat to ignite the oil vapor above the liquid surface inside the tanks. Secondary explosions follow as multiple cargo tanks rupture and ignite. The ship is now on fire, taking on water and hemorrhaging oil into the strait. The crew has approximately 8 minutes to abandon ship before the heat makes the deck uninhabitable. Some will make it to lifeboats, some will not. The burning tanker drifts in the shipping lane, blocking traffic in both directions. Other ships attempting to transit the strait must either wait for the wreck to be cleared or attempt to navigate outside the normal traffic lanes through shallow water where they risk running aground. Either choice delays oil deliveries. The global oil market reacts within hours. Brent crude futures spike by 18% as traders realize that the Strait of Hormuz is now a conflict zone where any ship could be destroyed without warning. Insurance companies immediately declare the strait a war zone, which triggers automatic cancellation of coverage for any vessel transiting the area. Without insurance, shipping companies cannot send tankers through the strait. Without tankers, Gulf oil cannot reach Asian and European markets. 21 million barrels per day normally flow through Hormuz. That represents 21% of global oil consumption. If the strait closes, that supply disappears overnight. There are no alternative routes that can replace 21 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia has a pipeline that bypasses the strait and terminates at the Red Sea port of Yanbu. Capacity is 5 million barrels per day. The UAE has a pipeline to Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman. Capacity is 1.5 million barrels per day. Combined, these pipelines can redirect 6.5 million barrels per day around the strait. That leaves 14.5 million barrels per day stranded in the Gulf with no way to reach global markets. Oil prices do not spike by 20% when supply drops by 14.5 million barrels per day. They spike by 200%. Strategic petroleum reserves get activated. Governments implement rationing. Industrial production drops. Transportation costs explode. The global economy enters recession within 30 days. Not a mild recession, a contraction comparable to 2008, but faster, because the trigger is a supply shock that cannot be solved with monetary policy. Iran knows this. Iran is counting on this, because the economic damage from closing Hormuz is so catastrophic that the international community will pressure the United States to de-escalate rather than allow the crisis to continue. This is not a military strategy designed to win a conventional war. This is an economic strategy designed to make the cost of conflict so high that the conflict ends on terms favorable to Iran. And the Tuluay drones are the enforcement mechanism that makes the threat credible. The United States has 3 options, none of them good. Option 1, accept that the strait is now contested and negotiate with Iran to establish rules of engagement that allow commercial shipping to continue. This means accepting Iranian control over the strait and legitimizing Iran's right to threaten global energy supplies whenever diplomatic disputes arise. That is a strategic surrender, disguised as pragmatic compromise. Option 2, attempt to clear the drones using MCM assets and anti-submarine warfare capabilities. This takes months, costs billions, and Iran can redeploy new drones faster than the US can clear them. The Navy ends up in a perpetual minesweeping operation that ties down assets, exhausts crews, and never actually secures the strait. Option 3, escalate by striking Iranian naval facilities, drone production sites, and command infrastructure. This stops future drone deployments, but triggers Iranian retaliation against US bases, allied nations, and regional oil infrastructure. The strait closes anyway because the war makes it too dangerous for commercial shipping, regardless of whether the drones are still active. Every option leads to either strategic concession or regional war. There is no option that restores the status quo where the strait is open, secure, and neutral. Iran just changed the parameters of what is possible in the Gulf. And they did it with technology that cost $94 million for 47 drones. The U.S. Navy's budget for maintaining Fifth Fleet operations in the Gulf is approximately $8 billion annually. Iran achieved strategic effect with hardware that costs 1% of the defensive budget required to counter it. This asymmetry is not new. Iran has been developing asymmetric capabilities for decades precisely because they cannot compete with the United States in conventional naval warfare. But the Tolui deployment represents a qualitative shift. Previous Iranian capabilities were visible and kinetic. Fast attack craft, anti-ship missiles, coastal artillery. You could see them, track them, target them. Underwater autonomous drones are invisible until they detonate. There is no warning, no intercept opportunity, no defensive counter that works reliably in the operational environment of the Strait. China is watching this deployment with extreme interest. China imports 10.6 million barrels of oil per day, 75% through Hormuz. But China is also learning from Iran's operational success. If autonomous underwater drones can control a 21-mile wide strait, they can control the 110-mile wide Taiwan Strait. The strategic lesson is clear. Relatively inexpensive autonomous systems can achieve sea denial in narrow waterways against vastly superior naval forces. Russia is providing technical assistance to Iran's UUV program, transferring expertise from Cold War programs. Russia benefits by field testing technology without deploying Russian forces. Every successful Tolui operation generates performance data that improves Russian systems. The Tolu drones are a proof of concept for autonomous weapons that shift the strategic balance in contested waterways. The technology is exportable. The tactics are replicable. And the strategic effect is achievable at a cost that makes traditional naval superiority increasingly irrelevant in shallow water environments. 47 drones, $200 million in hardware, the capability to close the Strait of Hormuz and trigger a global economic crisis. The U.S. Fifth Fleet has 11 ships, 40 aircraft, and an annual budget of $8 billion. None of it provides a reliable counter to the threat Iran just deployed. This is not about superior technology or larger budgets. This is about asymmetric innovation that exploits the defender's vulnerabilities faster than the defender can adapt. The drones are in the water. The strait is contested, and every tanker transiting Hormuz is now a potential target that Iran can destroy with a single command transmission. The global oil market is priced on the assumption that energy supplies are secure and shipping lanes are open. That assumption just became false, and the price adjustment has not fully happened yet. And when it does, the economic damage will not be measured in percentage points. It will be measured in shuttered factories, grounded aircraft, and governments that fall because they cannot keep the lights on. Share this because the mainstream coverage is showing you a regional military incident. They are not showing you the structural vulnerability that incident just exposed. Both are true. Only one matters for what happens to oil prices next month.